Welcome to a brief webinar on raising concern and hope. My name is Jay Otto, and I'm a research scientist with the Center for Health and Safety Culture in the Western Transportation Institute at Montana State University. Here at the center, we conduct research on how culture influences health and safety. All of our research is sponsored by organizations and agencies trying to improve health and safety in the communities they serve. This map shows the locations of past and current projects. As you can see, although we are located in Montana, we engage in projects all across the U.S. and Canada. Our projects involve local, state, and federal sponsors. Our projects often involve traffic safety, substance misuse, and violence and child maltreatment. These three issues result in a tremendous amount of harm in our communities. They're also interrelated. Substance misuse plays a role in traffic safety. Violence experienced as young children will impact individuals throughout their lives, and adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, are related to substance misuse. We see a lot of commonality between how these issues can be addressed, and there are opportunities for cross-learning. The purpose of this webinar is to explore raising concern and hope. We're going to learn about a definition of hope, learn about the unintended consequences of fear appeals, and learn how we can change our language to raise concern and hope. Our core assumption at the center is that the positive exists and is worth growing. That means for every project that we do and every community that we work with, we seek to explore positive aspects of their culture that will improve health and safety. We then seek to shine a light on those and grow those as a way to improve health and safety. So we very much use an appreciative approach. Much of our research at the center focuses on the positive culture framework, a way of organizing our work. We're not going to go into the details of this framework during this webinar. There are other webinars that you can explore on our website to learn more about the positive culture framework. But we do want to recognize that we focus on an outcome of improving health and safety. It's an appreciative approach, so we're seeking to grow positive aspects of culture that improve health and safety. And hope becomes an extremely important part of doing this work. Now, hope is not don't worry, be happy. Here's an actual academic definition of hope: the perceived capability to derive pathways to desired goals and motivate oneself via agency thinking to use those pathways. Now, we agree that that's a very academic definition, but we like to provide it to show that there's a lot of research behind the idea of hope. Now, a more straightforward way to understand hope is to see it as a willingness to move forward and being able to see a path forward. And you can clearly see that in order for individuals to have hope, or organizations to have hope, or communities to have hope, they need to have a will and a way to move forward. And when communities or individuals are lacking a sense of hope, it's much harder for them to engage and work on addressing very difficult issues, often difficult issues that impact health and safety. Research has revealed that there are many ways that we can intentionally grow hope. Setting stretch goals, goals that challenge us and bring us to a better place, a place of improved health and safety, can help us grow our sense of hope. Tackling challenging problems in steps. Sometimes problems can seem overwhelming, but if we can break them down, then we can see a path to move forward. And it's seeing that path then that can give people a will to move forward. Fostering involvement and co-creating with others can increase a sense of ownership, buy-in to plans, and also increase a sense of will and an ability to see the path forward. These are ways to grow hope with individuals. Rewarding achievement and celebrating success can also help people realize that they have been able to move forward, that they have been effective. Sometimes when we don't pause and look back, we lose the sense that we are making a difference. And by seeing that we are making a difference, it can bolster our sense of efficacy to be able to move forward in the future. Some of the problems we address are extremely complex, and sometimes we simply need to seek more resources to be effective. And that's an important acknowledgement. trying to solve a very major problem with not enough resources can lead to no results, which can lead to a sense of hopelessness. So sometimes the work is to step back and focus on gathering adequate resources to be effective. Training and capacity building are important ways that we can build a sense that we can move forward, that we can make a difference. And that can help us grow a sense of hope. And aligning with a deep purpose, a purpose as to why we do what we do, that can reinstill with us a will to do the work by connecting to that deep fundamental underlying purpose. Now, it's important to realize that in the past and even today in the present, many efforts to improve health and safety sometimes use fear as a motivating factor. This poster is an example of what we would call a fear appeal, a message designed to scare people into adopting a certain behavior, in this case not using smokeless tobacco or spit tobacco. However, the question we have to ask is, are there unintended consequences by using fear appeals? Now, this is an example of a billboard that was designed to prevent alcohol poisoning. And clearly the words are true. Chugging can kill, and a number of people die every year from alcohol poisoning. However, we also have to look at the story that's being told by the image. Here we see a very attractive buff guy who's the center of attention, who's engaging in the risky behavior. This can lead some to feel that if they engage in this behavior, they would be the center of attention, and that such a behavior is attractive, just like the individual is. It can also lead to a sense that this behavior is common, when in fact it's rare. All of those unintended consequences may actually make the problem worse instead of making it better. And research has shown that some fear appeals have actually resulted in an increase in the risky behavior instead of decreasing it. Research has shown that fear appeals can have unintended adverse effects. They can label and stigmatize, thus making it less likely that individuals who need treatment actually seek treatment. They can expand social gaps and create a sense of us versus them. And they can promote poor health as a value, and as I mentioned, actually increase the very behaviors we're trying to decrease. As many counselors know, humiliation, shame, and guilt are not the primary engines of change. So we want to be careful when we unintentionally, through our messaging or our communication, create a sense of humiliation, shame, or guilt around the very issues we're trying to address, as that may actually immobilize people and not engage them in the work that needs to be done. The research suggests that we need a balanced approach, an approach that includes attitudinal arguments, educational information, and growth in behavioral skills. Now, this all means that we need to raise a sense of concern. If people aren't concerned about an issue, they're not going to be engaged. But we can't stop with concern. We also need to grow a sense of hope. Now, when we think about raising a sense of concern, it's important for us to pause and reflect, how is concern different than fear? Concern involves higher order thinking, things that we do in our frontal lobes of our brain. Concern is more likely to result in engagement and less likely to result in a fight or flight response. Fear is a very primal instinct that's very deep in our brain systems, in our limbic systems. And fear can cause a very strong reaction where we're not thinking clearly, but we're just reacting. For the complex issues that we're seeking to address, we need to raise a sense of concern, of high-level thinking, but we don't want to create a sense of fear that either shuts people down or drives them away from addressing the issue. Now, where the line is between concern and fear is difficult, and it's different for different people and different issues. We believe that we need to raise a sense of concern and hope. Yes, we need to raise a sense of concern so that people are aware of potential negative outcomes from engaging in certain behaviors. And we need to raise a sense of hope, which gives them a will and a path forward to address those issues. It takes both. And these two messages or concepts are not contradictory. We can do both of these in our communication efforts. Historically, I think we've been better at raising concern, but we can very much add in aspects of raising hope as well. Let's look at some examples. Suppose we're dealing with a traffic safety issue like seatbelts, and we have a fatal crash in our community where people were unbelted. Sometimes people might say, we have an epidemic of people not wearing their seatbelts, or way too many people are not wearing their seatbelts. But that can leave people without a sense of hope. Instead, we might say something like, while most people in our community always wear a seatbelt, yesterday's fatal crash was a tragic reminder of what happens when people are unbelted. So we use language which establishes that the incident is a counterexample of our positive culture, the positive culture where most people in our community always wear a seatbelt. Of course, we want everyone in our community to always wear a seatbelt, but we don't want to discount the positive culture that already exists in our community by only highlighting the counterexample. So we add that first phrase, while most people in our community always wear a seatbelt, to establish the norms in our community. And then we describe the incident as a counterexample. This is a way of raising concern and hope in one statement. Here's another example talking about high visibility enforcement. So we establish what the positive norm is with the beginning sentence. This establishes a sense of hope. Most people in our community do not drive after drinking. Nonetheless, impaired driving is still a leading cause of crashes in our community. That's where we raised a sense of concern. Now we talk about what we're going to do about it. We will be engaging in extra patrols this weekend to protect our community. So with the first sentence, we can establish what our positive culture is and thereby establish a sense of hope. We can then raise concern about a very risky behavior and then talk about the path or the action that's being taken on to address the issue. Here's another example that focuses on a shared belief instead of a shared behavior. The first sentence states, most people in our community agree people should never drink and drive. That's a shared positive belief that's a part of our culture. Let's all do our part to prevent drinking and driving by using designated drivers and finding alternative transportation for people who have been drinking. Now we can give people a path or what they can do to address the issue. So these are just a few examples of how we can raise concern and hope in the language that we use. Oftentimes the sense of hope comes from a realization that the solutions are in the community, that there are positive aspects of our community's culture that we can leverage and create a sense of hope, while at the same time we're raising a sense of concern to become engaged on an issue. To learn more about our approaches or the positive culture framework, we encourage you to visit our website. There are other webinars there that you can listen to. And you can also find out about when our next positive culture framework training will take place. Here are a few questions that we would encourage you to reflect on to help process your learning. How is your issue presented in your community? In a way that grows hope and concern? In a way that raises fear? What actions can you take to grow concern and hope about the issues you're addressing in your community? So really think about actions that you can take as an individual. How could you model an appreciative or hopeful attitude through prevention activities? Where could you find solutions to the behaviors you're seeking to change within your own community? How might a positive approach help sustain your efforts over time? And how might positive actions engage or inspire others to join your efforts? You can learn more by visiting our website or following us on Facebook or Twitter. Thanks so much for your time.